Pokemon Black and White 2 are just incredible, and in my opinion, probably the best games in the entire franchise. Where am I going with this? Well, a few weeks back, I asked you guys to leave some of your favorite in-game teams in the comments section, and you guys delivered. Lately, I've been only covering certain regions on the channel, but then I saw this team from Felix Leon, and I remembered how diverse Pokemon Black and White 2's Pokédex was. This team is actually pretty unique, in that it shows off Univa's own great mons, while also showing off mons from other regions, blending them very well together. Plus, doing any content around Univa always feels refreshing. Anywho, if you want your team showcased, leave it down below. I may showcase it next time. Before we start, I am currently streaming on Twitch again. I'm live pretty much whenever. If you don't like streams, the broadcasts will be available on Mystmagius. So if you want a more raw side of me, then consider checking those out. I'm also working on a book right now where I'm using lo-fi music beats to show off the characters' personalities. In fact, I'm actually uploading daily beats over there for the next month. I'll leave Luna's World in the description below as well. Promos out of the way, let's get started. So what's cool about starting this team off is that the starter is gone. Felix ditched their starter and wound up picking Riolu instead from the Flockacy Ranch. I've talked pretty extensively about Lucario before on this channel, so I'm not going to get super in-depth about why this thing is great or anything. I will say though, it's a pretty solid mixed attacker that is available at a very early point in the game, so it definitely works as a great starter replacement. Lucario can sweep through a plethora of trainers across Black and White 2, so it wouldn't surprise me if it was one of this team's major MVPs. If I had to guess a moveset, it was probably something like Aura Sphere or some other kind of fighting stab combined with something out of this coverage pool, which I can imagine you cook something pretty good. Maybe you even ran a physical variant set with Swords Dance. That's what's cool about Lucario, is that you can practically do whatever you want with it, and it still works really well. I should have said in the beginning that the Pokemon on this team were gonna be out of order, because I don't really think it matters. This next mon I don't see a lot, and it's a Univenmon that in my opinion doesn't get a lot of love. It's Gigalith. I can sit and talk about why Gigalith Shiny is one of the coolest things to ever exist, but I highly doubt Felix got a shiny one. I would also love to sit here and talk about how amazing Gigalith is, but I don't really have anything too much of interest to say, other than I don't see it a lot on Univen teams. I will say I think it's one of the coolest rock types ever. It's available at a decent point in the game. I love its base attack, and I love its level 30 rock slide. It's refreshing to see Gigalith, and I'm glad it's getting appreciated in some way. As for a moveset, I know obviously it has Stab Rock, but with its move pool lacking, and Univa having late game or post game TMs, it's hard for me to guess a moveset. Wrapping up the first half of the team, we have the thumbnail Pokemon, Arcanine. The Growlithe line has been a staple for anyone's team since it debuted all those years ago. There are so many cool things about it, especially for Univa. I originally thought it was version exclusive, but no, it's for both versions of the game. If you don't feel like using Darmanitan, it's available. It's a mixed attacker, you get it earlier, I personally think it looks cooler, it gets Flamethrower at level 34, and Thunderfang can be mover learned. And you can pick up a Firestone from the Desert Resort. Growlithe can also be available by the time you get to Berg with Firefang, so that's another plus. For a moveset, I think I can actually guess what it was, considering its move pool is better than the last two Pokemon, and doesn't rely heavily on TMs. Flamethrower, Thunderfang / Wild Charge, Extreme Speed, and possibly Bulldoze. Wild Charge I do think is a little far out of the way, and it does cause recoil, so I would pick Thunderfang, but that's just me. Starting the second half of the team is another dope Univen mon I don't see getting a lot of love, and that's Electros. I see this mon being featured on Univen teams sometimes, but it's not something I see a lot. Electros' move pool is just incredibly deep, so there are so many options you can use for it. You can find it in Chargestone Cave, so it's around the midpoint of the game. It is a little higher level to evolve, so it's not the most favorable electric type I typically like to use. but it still is fun nonetheless. From level 39, it then evolves into Electros using a Thunderstone, which I believe can be purchased from the Battle Subway. There might be other ways to get one though. So, what's there not to like about Electros? It's got a killer design, it's got one of the coolest move pools I've ever seen on a Mon, it's a mixed attacker, and it's got the Levitate ability, giving it no weaknesses aside from a Mold Breaker Pokemon. The only detriment is its speed. On a Mon like this, I can see why its speed is low. There needs to be some kind of balance. Its move pool is my favorite part though, and damn, I gotta say, this thing has a lot to work with. And oh, I've been looking at its Scarlet and Violet move pool. Yeah, no wonder. Its Black and White 2 move pool is still decent though. It's just hard to distinguish which moves are post-game and which aren't. Felix, you let us know what moveset you chose for Electros down in the comments below, and I will pin your comment. So I know for a fact Felix was playing Pokemon Black 2, and because of that, Mandibuzz was chosen as this team's flyer. I don't get to cover version-exclusive Pokemon much on the channel, simply due to the fact that I primarily focus on building teams that are beneficial for both versions of a said Pokemon game. That way everybody can play. You can run into Mandibuzz on Route 4 on Thursdays. Apparently, it's a hidden ability one as well, so that's pretty neat. This bird definitely has the bulk, but its offenses are definitely slacking. I remember Mandibuzz being especially fun in competitive Gen 6. Running Toxic and pissing off your opponents is always a blast. I've never considered using one for a Gen 5 in-game run though, simply due to its offenses. If it were a favorite Mon of mine, I would for sure consider using one. It does have a cool design. I also gotta say its level up pool isn't terrible, but with 65 attack, I just have a hard time wanting to use it. It's just classified as one of those, if it's your favorite Mon, you will use it. Kind of like how I use Umbreon, so I do understand that sentiment for sure. It's hard for me to figure out what moveset was used on Mandibuzz. The coverage pool isn't too humongous, so I don't know, Rock Tomb? Then the rest of it is Stab, Aerial Ace, and Feint Attack, perhaps maybe even Dark Pulse and Air Slash as special variants. Lastly, we have a Mon that has been showcased on this channel a multitude of times, being Roserade. I talk everyone's ears off when it comes to this Rose and Sinnoh, but I completely forgot it's available in Pokemon Black and White 2. And not gonna lie, one of the main reasons why I chose this team was specifically because of Roserade. Roserade and Unova just mixed together well. I don't know how or why, it's just a feeling I get. Roselia can be found in the mid-30s on Route 12, and can evolve into Roserade via the Shiny Stone, which can be obtained on Route 6. It is a bit of a later game Mon, but for something that can't be typically found in Unova, I can accept that. I love Roselia's level up pool as well. Giga Drain at level 25 and Petal Dance at level 37. Pretty good. Poison Stab I don't really think is needed. Plus, it doesn't really get useful for playthroughs until Generation 6 anyways. The most unfortunate part about Roserade though, is that there's not a lot of coverage to pick from. Your best options are 1. Shadow Ball, or if you want to run Sunny Day and Weather Ball, those can be interesting. Stats wise, Roserade is pretty damn good, and I can see it doing well against some of the important trainers, especially Marlin. Well, I would say that pretty much wraps up this team by Felix. I love the variety this team has with the Univin choices and the other regional ones. I don't see these Univin Mons on teams very often, so it's refreshing. The other choices I do see a lot, but because it's Black and White too, just using these Mons in Unova is already fun enough. Using past favorites in a gen that was basically a reset was new and refreshing, especially when combining them with Unova's fantastic deck selection. But yeah, this team was definitely a breath of fresh air, and I loved showcasing it. So thank you Felix for posting your team. If you want a chance to have your team featured, leave it in the comments below, and who knows, I might feature it.